Well, hello and welcome, everyone. And thank you for joining us today on this live session and interview related to the 4X method. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing one of my favorite people and a real true example of leadership and also what a woman in business looks like. So I am really excited to welcome Jenna Pipchuk, who I'm going to be bringing here on stage in a moment. But first, I wanted to introduce myself for those who may not know me. I am Corey Davison. I am the founder of 4Experience, and I am the author of the 4X method. And if you don't know what the 4X method is about, don't miss out. Go to the4xmethod.com, and we actually have news. The 4X method, the experience equation, is the book that is now just fresh available on Amazon. So you can go to Amazon and order it in Canada, in the US, or Australia as well. And if you want the book sent to you, you can also DM me, right? If you're not in any of those places, but go to the 4xmethod.com. And this book is actually the compilation of like over 25 years of lived experiences, living in corporate different silos. And we're going to talk about that here. And what I've learned from it. And as a result, I created this method that's called the 4X method that brings together key areas of your organization to bridge and center your silos in the organization, focused on how to serve your customers. And that becomes the formula for growth. Yes, my friends, proven and tried. So, or tried and proven, I say. And so go to the 4xmethod.com, and let me tell you, just to keep you here, you might be like on the run, but you need to come back to this recording if you don't have time to listen to the whole thing, because this is going to be worth your while. What would how valuable would it be to you to have a conversation or to hear the experience of an individual who has been in every role, like from product all the way to managing international sales for large growing companies, both in the hardware and software world. I'm telling you, there is a ton to learn from Jenna Pipchuk. When I first met Jenna, we were both colleagues at Smart Technologies. We were both in this organization that was undergoing tremendous change, from moving from a really fast pace. And Jenna was in the products team at that time. I was in the strategy team as a market insights leader. And so inevitably, our paths crossed at different times. But and she'll be part of the story, right? Like I tell in the 4X method, she was a witness and she was, sometimes a subject of the story. The interesting thing is that I really admired, how Jenna worked with different teams. She had this point of like, she was kind of like the person who would bring people together and get it. Always this calm demeanor of her too, and this level of knowledge, right? And at the same time, I saw this evolution. One of the first things that I remember celebrating is, of course, seeing, a woman progressing in the executive, in that path of leadership. So seeing then how she became a leader internationally, managing international sales for this organization, all the way from Europe, managing international markets like Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and what that takes. We're going to talk about that too. And then becoming a VP, and then being in the C-suite as the chief revenue officer of the company. Further on, moving, and now she is an AI first CEO at a pure SaaS company, and we're going to talk about what that means. But please, everyone, you can't miss this. Let's welcome Jenna Pipchuk.
Thank you, Corey. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited about this release of the book. Mine's in the mail. I'm going to open it very soon. I'm very excited. And thank you for letting me be a small part of your journey.
Oh my goodness. I'm so honored that you said yes to adding your insight to the book. And you were one of the featured leaders. And the other thing I forgot to mention is that Jenna, I love how it has evolved, our relationship, even like not just work, but also, just being, I think, I've turned into your fan, basically, right? Throughout all this process, but also becoming, for my audience, if you've heard my other recordings, there's a trend here. It's like anyone I work with, beware, you'll become my friend, right? It's like, if there's a mutual admiration, whether you're a client, a colleague, or any stage, right? It's a human to human connection. So thanks, Jenna, for being here. So
Thank you for having me. It's mutual, Corey. What I love about you is your unabashed enthusiasm for positivity. Sometimes we mute ourselves in business environments, but I always know whenever I'm getting to talk to you, we're going to have a good time. Energy is going to be high, and the positivity is great.
fantastic. Well, thank you. Thanks very much. And let's talk about this. Like I mentioned first, as I was introducing you, that you are now an AI first CEO, right?
Yes,
Tell me
yes.
about that and tell us, what does that mean?
I'm loving AI first. So everybody's talking about AI, of course, which I'm a lifelong learner and I just love learning new things. And so this opportunity came, and I've been so privileged to not just get to sell an AI product and learn about AI as I do it, but we are encouraged and metriced on AI in every aspect of our business career. So, what I've been able to learn in the last 4 months in just kind of a 360-degree view of my work, seeing firsthand, not just learning how to prompt and large language models, but just everything I touch now has some element of AI in it, and we track it and we measure it, and that's what it means to be AI first. But also, I get to sell a very exciting AI product to education, which I firmly believe in and can change student lives. So that's like a triple privilege.
How fantastic is that? And I mean, this is really the way of the future, but it's now, right? It's sort of like and in the book, for those who are listening, we do talk about. So there's an entire chapter that I wrote about AI in business, and one of those things is kind of like, how are you adopting AI? Are you behind? Are you like experimenting with it, or full on? It looks like Jenna can will write that next chapter as well, right? About what it looks like, to implement AI first in your organization. So, Jenna, your title of your book, right? Sorry, the title of the chapter in the Forex Method book is the growth catalyst. I mean, this could become the book too. So the growth catalyst, blowing up silos to build a unified commercial engine. Right? So the growth catalyst, blowing up silos to build a unified commercial engine. Let's talk about the silos, right? Like, let's talk about how do you identify silos and what that means. Jenna, you've been in the silos. So can you walk us through your trajectory and your experience with the silos?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody can relate to silos in organizations. And, this chapter talks specifically about, an organization where the silos were deeply entrenched and we had tried a number of things to move it. But as I've traversed to other organizations, I've seen, there's different types of silos. And even in startups, I'm now like thinking about, there's actually siloed thinking. Like it actually starts in how you think about things as an individual. So like if you use us and them thinking internally, you can actually create silos with very small teams. And so that's been an interesting learning curve. But I'm sure we've all encountered the organizations where, someone throws a thumb out and says, oh, over there, I don't know what they do, or I don't know what's happening over there. It's their problem. We're doing everything perfect over here, but of course not communicating or working with the over theirs if they exist. And so really it's about, as a leader, setting expectations on what true collaboration looks like, giving them good examples of good collaboration, and then also walking the walk. And, even at executive level, I often tell the executives, when, the teamwork actually has to start here. Sometimes at the executive table is the most siloed organizations. And so you have to be an example of that, but also just start at the very thinking. As soon as you see an element of thinking that is about an us versus them or a they over there or those sorts of things, that's the beginnings of siloed natures.
Thank you. Thank you. That is so true, right? Like sometimes we think it's just organizational divisions, but conditional, is what you're saying, right? And you've been, we live it in different ways, right? And we have this feeling of us versus them usually, right? Like this, inevitably it comes. I think it's part of the subcultures. And in the book, I do talk about discovering, like with my clients also, that is like, oh, it's not just as simple as saying, hey, let's collaborate, right? Or let's talk to each other. It's like it's deep rooted in cultures, or even like as you start growing, you're bringing in other corporate cultures, and I'm referring to corporate cultures, ways of working, right? It's like, this is my territory, this is my data, right? This
Yes.
is like, this kind of things. It's like, go mow your own lawn, right? All this stuff. And
Yeah,
how
100%.
has
The
that manifested?
collaboration. So the collaboration, it is a negotiated state between two people, and so like two people in the same roles, if you change a person, the actual collaboration has to be renegotiated, and that's one of the things that I did learn over time is that
Mm-hmm.
real collaboration is actually a good negotiation between two people who have some crossover in work, and setting expectations around, hey, you have to negotiate which parts you each own because there is overlap, and that's a personal negotiation. Actually, we can set guidelines, we can set expectations, we can give guidance on what we think those separations should be, but real true collaboration is negotiated between the two people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And let's talk about the effects of silos, because I think everybody who's listening can feel it at one degree or another, right? Whether you're living in the silos, whether you're experiencing it. And I've talked to many of you who are saying like, oh my gosh, I see this problem, and I see the solution, I just don't know where to get started, right? Well, now you have where to get started, the forexmethod.com. It's the antidote to silos. Anyway, pitch here. But the let's talk about the effect. Why is it important? Why are we even talking about silos in the context of experience, right? In the Forex method, it's all about um, how this impacts at the end of the day customers and employees, the human connection, right? Like,
Yeah,
so you've
hit on
touched
the
on
heart of it.
the EX, which is the employee experience. Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about the impact on the customers
Yeah, no,
or
you hit on the
partners.
heart of it. Why do silos matter? Is the more siloed you are, the further away you are from the customer, and the customer feels an organization's siloed nature. Because what happens when you're siloed is you're not talking to the customer in the same way. You might be missing opportunities to have a seamless experience for your customer. You might even be selling them different things in different tones, in an uncoordinated time. The more siloed you are, the more the customer actually feels that you're a disjointed organization, and maybe their experience is diminished because of your organization's inability to kind of drop that siloed nature. What I find is the higher the silo walls, the more the employees get really focused on their portion of the work, and the harder it is to help them feel connected. And the purpose, what we're all trying to do, which is make the customer experience be exemplary. And so to do that, you have to have the customer at the heart of everything. And the way to do that is to not be an individual silo focused on your work, but much more on understanding the full customer journey and what your purpose and part in that is.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's think here from a customer's standpoint right now, because this is an incredible opportunity. Everybody thinks, typically when we talk about customer experience or employee experience or something, the first thing is examples that come from retail world, right? Or from, because those are easy experiences, but hardly do we talk about that B2B that is like so layered, right? And you and I have lived in those B2B worlds where it's like you're not seeing the customer every day unless you're like the business developer or the customer success manager. Everybody else is guessing who is this person, right? Or it's like they have their own version of it. And some call it this, and it might be like some call it decision maker. And the other one is, like you know, um, the implementer or and it's like, that's not a person, right? Like that's a role. But, all these different nuances of in the B2B world. And as we talk about like this, everybody living, thank you for bringing up, like everybody thinks of customer differently, right? And so what would you say is like unique, like in to consider, in that B2B world and
Mhm.
getting people closer to the customer? Like, surveys only get you so far, right? And yeah, so how do you make it true?
Yeah, for sure. In B2B, I think it's just even more important that you have no silos, because you're not talking, I mean, the first question is who is the customer? Which customer are you talking about? Because now you're talking about usually multi-layers in the channel. So are you talking about selling to the distributor, the reseller, the end user? Which customer are we talking about right now? Also, as everyone knows, you're often selling to stakeholder groups, not just an individual or an individual consumer. So not only do you have to go, well, who is the customer, but also who is the entire group of customers that we're focusing on, and then who's talking to who about what. Like I know I've used a lot of who language, but B2B just has that many more complexities because there's more customers involved in the process, and it's also less clear on what is marketing and what is sales because you have more overlap, and we're talking to, the customer base. And yes, we talk differently to each of the different customers, and having more collaboration, understanding, and having good conversations about who we're talking about helps you overall in the customer experience, whichever customer we're talking about through the B2B experience.
Yeah, and inevitably I start seeing, as you were discussing this, the element of brand, right? That comes into it. And for those who are not familiar yet with the 4X, yeah, here we go. It's unveiling it. Employee experience that we talked about, the internal silos, the us versus them, and the collaboration. The customer experience, which we're just referencing, right? And it applies to B2B, because you might think that you're just selling processes and products. Yeah, if you're like in commodities, it also applies. Like I just worked with a mining company as well, right? And it's like, I was like, how does this apply? Oh, it does apply, right? There's humans everywhere. And then the element of like the third X is the brand experience, right? So, and it's all of them work together in how you're portraying it. It's like, how do you show up consistently? Even if you have different versions of the truth internally, it's going to come out as different versions of the truth, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I always reference in my head, brand equals reputation. And so, brand awareness is what's the reputation or experience that strangers hear about you because they don't know you yet. And so, how do we use the 4X method to help us with the brand experience, which is exactly how do you manage that reputation? How do you introduce yourself to people that don't know you yet?
That's wonderful. Yeah, no, absolutely. Right. And if we walk in the customer's shoes, let's think about this idea of passing on the baton, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here comes the sale, right? Or marketing is doing their job to get the lead generation, like someone grabs that baton and turns it into, a conversation leading to a customer, right? So you walk us through kind of like what does this chain of passing the baton look like?
Yeah, I think this was one of the things this is a technique that we used in trying to break down the silos. Was we actually had a baton that traveled the world, and we were documenting the story of how this baton was being passed, because we were trying to improve the kind of passing of the information from one department to another, or passing of the, tag you're it. And it wasn't working. And I started to realize that if you really watch the track and field passing of the baton, it's not just hurling the baton over and saying, here you go, run a good race. It's about how do you train together? How do you understand what each of them are doing? How do you make sure that you're going at the right speed so that you know when you're passing it in that little zone of passing it? And so that's what we talk a lot about. We talked about the gray zone of we no longer is there like a line that you cross and the baton goes across. In other words, person A works to point B, and then at point B they pass the baton, and then person C does this amount of work, and it's very discrete parts of work. And it doesn't mean that there's not sometimes discrete parts of work. Of course there is, but we're just saying it's no longer a line, it's actually a section, and that section you run from one person being wholly responsible to less responsible, and one person from being not responsible to fully responsible of something. And then that's that part that we say is negotiated, is that small area. If you're doing the track and field analogy where they're running and passing, that's not a line you jump over. That's a space that you negotiate how to pass.
That's great insight. I love the analogy. I love the, like the preparation and the team effort. Let me ask a question. What role did journey mapping play in identifying
Oh,
the customer journey mapping, employee journey mapping?
yeah. Journey
Mhm.
mapping is, of course, important to helping everybody keep the customer at center and understand the customer's point, but also blueprinting the piece underneath the journey mapping. I think that's one that helps it become more tangible, because the customer has an experience, but also mapping what are all your touch points and who owns each of those touch points and where are those touch points similar. Can we get some efficiencies in the blueprinting underneath the journey? That's really, I think that makes a more fulsome journey that sometimes I think some of the tactical people have trouble understanding how the journey relates to them. And so you actually have to do that second part that actually takes them from here's the customer experience to here's what's happening inside our organization to make that
Absolutely,
experience
absolutely.
happen. Mm-hmm.
And thanks for bringing up the blueprint, because that is referenced and in the book you'll find there's an entire chapter of an entire section of understanding the customer. That is part of the 4Experience framework. And there's journey mapping. There's a complete guidelines from my flavors and my experience on running workshops, with multitude of companies and teams. And then what are some of the mistakes and pitfalls there? But as you were referencing service blueprint, I want to make a note here for our audience, because I find like some people, there's a spectrum when we talk about service blueprints. And I kind of like have been called the service blueprint queen, right? So the service blueprinting queen, and it is part of the tools that we use in the 4X method. But the key thing here is there's a different reaction. It's like, what is a service blueprint? To those who are like Jenna, who going like, you absolutely need a service blueprint. I'm going to talk to those people in the middle who are kind of like, really? We're going to do a service blueprint? That takes forever. It doesn't have to take forever. It should be part of an ongoing process. Like it should be something that you center, because you're not going to build a house without a blueprint, right? Let's be clear. The plumber is not going to know where things go. The electrician's not going to know where things go. And that's the same thing with a blueprint. So that's my note on blueprinting. If you don't know what it is, let's talk. Like Jenna can also share, the insights, but it's really essential, because then your organization is, especially if you're undergoing growth, right, Jenna? You're going to have so many layers, people coming in, people leaving, like all of these things. It's never going to be the same picture. You need to keep this alive so that people kind of go like, I'm new to the company. Where's the manual? Blueprint, right? I know who's the customer. Go to the blueprint, right? These kind of things. So anyway, thanks for the commercial spot in here.
Always.
So then when we haven't mentioned, the fourth layer, like the fourth pillar, because in the 4X method, customer, employee, brand, and the fourth one, you started in this when I met you, like this was the focus of your role, which is product, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And how does that play out? What has been your experience in bringing all of these 4X together?
Yeah, I think so. I started my career in product. I was in product management for well over 15 years. And I thought that was going to be my entire career, was going to be in product management and product development. I got this amazing opportunity with a leader that believed in me. So I had an opportunity come to go across the pond and move to France. And I couldn't continue to do my product job. And they said, we think you could do a sales leadership job. And I was taken aback, to be honest, because that was never in my trajectory. I didn't identify as a salesperson, as many people do. Ooh, sales, the salesman, that's not me. So I had to go through, how do I learn it? How do I accept it? And also found out that I loved it. And so, great for me that I've turned out that actually sales does fit me even more than product. But taking that breadth of background from being on the technical side and being on the product development side and applying that to sales was, a fun transition, and something that I think your 4X kind of talks about the broadness of all of things. And I can say that I've applied that to my own career, kind of now that I've been in sales for as long as I've ever been in product, and a little bit longer, and enjoying and continuing to be.
Well, I love about that where you've taken risks. Anyone who's like thinking that is like, oh no, this is my silo, right? It's like, but you learn so much when you transition to different silos, right? Like when you're like in that, like myself, like I think that that's something that we can probably relate to. Like I didn't go like from product to sales, but it's interesting because I see it like as a whole thing, right? It's kind of you have to understand it, and I always think you're always on sales. The one thing is like for myself, for example, I started in research, then into brand management. When I moved to Canada in human resources first, and I was like, what do I know about human resources? But you start like dealing, learning, these, and everything shapes you up. And it was, in our last role at this a company that was, a global lead, that is a global leader in what is digital whiteboarding, right? It was kind of like just so much learning. So anyone who's hesitant on trying new things, I'm going to say there's so much you can grow into it, right? Like, when you try new things, even if you think you're going to fail, that's a learning lesson. So I would say go for it.
We do fail.
Right?
Okay. We learn more from our failures in general. So yeah, I would encourage anybody to try new things, see how they fit. It's okay to go through identity crises, and you never know what you might find out you love by trying something new.
Absolutely, absolutely. So many lessons to learn from the leaders featured in this book as well. Now, in this, let's now nail it into what did you discover? Because we're talking about the unified commercial engine, and you were actually featured in the Harvard Business Review because of this work that was done, right? In blowing up the silos and starting fresh. Oh my gosh! Like, tell me about that.
Yeah, look, life dream met when that happened. But let's go to the learnings. I learned so much about how to communicate, how to lead, how to tie purpose into people's roles. So just to step back, because it's what we did with the unified commercial engine is we broke down all of the silos. We stopped doing departments. We actually stopped having a marketing and sales department and customer success, like all the traditional ones. And we actually just made the entire group part of a unified commercial engine, and we aligned around the customer journey. So whether they were learning about it, whether they were in the process of buying, or whether they were being supported, we organized all of our structure, our organization structure, in kind of a matrixed environment around that. But some of the key learnings that we got from it was giving people the opportunity to understand broader outside of their own job role is important. And it helped them stay connected to the customer, but also to the purpose. So people are driven by purpose and understanding what their role is. And you get a bit disconnected, especially the larger the organization is that you get in. What does my work equivalent to in the entire process, or how does my one little job impact our customers? And so understanding not only how you're impacting the customers, but understanding what other people are doing and how you're impacting what they're doing is actually one of the things that was a nice uncovering for me, or a nice learning for me, is that, actually, I thought I was just breaking down silos, but actually I was helping people connect to our customers and helping people connect to their purpose in their work.
That's amazing, Jenna, because I can imagine it wasn't like a straightforward path. I remember that you said, I wanted to talk about that part that you were saying, like, yes, we are doing this. Like, can you narrate that piece? Because
yeah, of course.
In the book, but I'd like to hear, like your words.
I mean, look, change management is one of the things that was difficult. So in this instance, we took over 200 people. We completely rewrote the organizational structure. We completely rewrote many of their jobs. We rewrote who they reported to, all of this. And then on top of it, it turned out to be COVID when we were launching. So like change upon change upon change. And so a lot of people ask me about change management, and the CMO at the time who worked on this with me, we would look at each other, and like for the first 3 months, all we did was say, yep, we're really doing this. Like our commitment to the change was actually the first step in the change management, because as you know, in large organizations, lots of things have been tried. They're very hard to change in many instances. And so people will sit back, and if they just sit back long enough, nothing will change and things will go back to the way they are. And so you have to, like, to be a change agent, not only do you have to have a conviction and a vision of where you're going, but then you have to continually help people get to the mindset that this is actually going to happen. And so completely repeating, yep, this is really happening. Yep, we're really doing this as you're going down the path. And for the first 3 months, that was, continuously said. After about 3 months, we didn't say that anymore, because obviously they had started to make the mind shift changes of where things were going. And then I couldn't have rewound it at that time if I wanted to. One of the interesting things was, I think like a year in, we had our like company kickoff, like what would be a traditional SKO or sales kickoff would be. And for a period of the agenda, we had put people in their grouping with like jobs. So like say all the demand gen managers together. Now that wasn't who they identified as their team, because their team was more cross-functional. And wow, I was not ready for the kickback that got. It was like, hold on, we don't think this way anymore. We don't do this anyway. I want to sit with my team. Why are you sitting me with other people who do the same job as me? So that was very, very interesting, and showed me how far the mindset had gone.
Wow, that is so amazing. Like I love all of the different variables, the change management, the people, the purpose, like the mindset, but also it's like, I think about it like, it's like all of a sudden you created a party, right? You created like not these kind of like little groups. I'm just envisioning with what you just described, that it's like you have this event and it's like, no, I don't have to sit with the same group of people just because we have the same job title. It's like, now I can cross, to that other side. I can see, I see you, and there's human connection, right? Like there's like that element of like purpose, connection, acceptance, right? And that's amazing. Let's talk about the results, Jenna, because here's the crux of it, right? Like we have to, when we get to like nailing it down, our audience is listening and going like, well, that's all nice to have, right? That sounds like lovely, no, it's not kumbaya. This is not a nice to have. Here's Jenna to tell you what are the results of when you just kind of like say, and during COVID this happened too. So, and it was published in the Harvard Business Review for this reason.
Yeah, the results were amazing, and kind of in a lot of different areas. So just engagement. So this is, we were well into it during what was the Great Resignation, when nobody could hold anybody, and actually we didn't lose staff. We stayed at single digit retention loss, and like didn't even feel that all the companies were talking about didn't hit us. And I think that's because we hit on purpose. But like, to get to the financial brass tacks, like, to the siloed nature, we were having really low numbers in sales accepted leads, from marketing qualified leads to sales accepted. That was not even going well at all. And through this, we doubled, and then even more than doubled it in the following year. And then our revenue went up like 30% in the first year, and I think 50% overall in the 2.5 years that we were doing it. So like, just like the financial numbers were really great. The quality metrics all improved. And then, we also, in our engagement scores, I think we moved up as an organization in our engagement scores as well, into, I think we were a top tech company, and then we got into a top of all types of companies while we were there. So yeah, really, really stunning. But again, it was the whole team that did that, of course, right? It was the whole team making that change and being committed to our customers.
I wish that there was like a reaction button here, because I would be doing the clap, clap, clap confetti here and stuff. But people, that's the magic, right? Like, that's the magic of things happening. So congratulations to you and all the leaders, everyone who was involved in that team. It takes an army, right, to get all these things done. And so what would be, on reflection, we talk about like, what would be your advice to leaders in organizations that are undergoing growth or undergoing change, right? It can go both ways, but it's like, how do you get back on track and get everyone to align? Like, what would be your
skills? Yeah, there's a few skills that people don't talk a lot. One of the things we had to do was teach people how to lead people that weren't their direct report. So indirect leadership. There wasn't a lot of training in that. Some of it we had to make on our own, and some of that was one of the key elements that I don't think we train enough on. Teaching people how to collaborate was another one. And also, I underestimated getting the rest of the organization involved. So we were unifying the commercial part of the engine, but we hadn't actually put a lot of thought into, well, what does that mean for product, and what does that mean for the supply chain, and like the elements that were outside of the commercial engine. And so, looking back, I was like, oh, I should have spent more time in understanding all of the implications this change made to all the other departments, because they wanted to be part of the UCE as well, and how did that matter to their departments. So those things. What else? Indirect leadership. Yeah, just change management is a big part of it. But if you have a very crystal clear vision, you can lead people in different in directions. But you have to be very firm in what you're trying to achieve.
Well said. Thank you. No, this is awesome. Like, I hear you saying kind of like other people were going to go in like, hey, I want to join that party. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Don't leave others. Yeah. So I hear you kind of like, don't leave people out of the party, intentionally or unintentionally, right? So but that's what the Forex method is for, guys. But no, absolutely, Jenna. This has been such a pleasure, to talk about the experiences that are reflected in your chapter in the book, right? There's a ton of insights. I have the chapter here in front of me. There's an entire thing about creating customer-centric cross-functional teams. Like, if you want to know more details, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. Thanks to my husband, I have a unique last name, so Pipchuk with a UK at the end. But reach out by LinkedIn. I'd love to chat with anyone about the commercial engine, the unified commercial engine, or about revenue in general, or about AI.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure that if you follow Jenna, you're gonna see like you're just getting started, my dear. From what I see here, right? It's like you're just like skyrocketing and amazing. Such a pleasure, Jenna, to having you. And I'd love you. Do you have some liquid there?
I have a nice iced tea here for the afternoon.
Yeah, there you go, iced tea. For those who are thinking this is a rosé, actually this is like water with some hydration thing, but in a fancy glass. But cheers,
Cheers too.
The book is out. Go check it out.
It's a great read. Thank you, Corey. I'm so excited people get to hear more of your wisdom.
Thank you. And thanks for being a part of it too. So you heard it, everyone. Jenna, where should they go to get the book?
They should go to the forexmethod.com and order from there, or from wherever you can get regular books like Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon, that's right. Awesome. Well, thank you and have a fantastic day. Please share your comments with us. Now I am going to, as we keep talking here, I have to find the end record button. I have it here. And because if you look at my previous conversations, it's actually hilarious. It's like real life. I'm like looking for it, and we're like staring at each other. It's like, has this ended? Anyway, this is the end, everyone. But please, follow us. We'll keep sharing some news. The book is just the start. I have so much planned for you. You're going to have resources. We talked about collaboration. I have a collaboration assessment. You can actually go to theforexmethod.com, take the collaboration assessment, get a feel for it, how you can implement it in your company. There's the Forex method, assessment, so you can see how are you performing in this Forex, how are you busting the silos. That's in there too. And then a ton of resources that are coming as well to help you exemplify what does a service blueprint look like, and then how do you implement the Forex method. That's where it's at. And we'll see you soon. And I would love your comments. Thank you again, Jenna. Bye now.